Good evening. Hello, Bernice. Hi, Corinne. Yes, Bernice, happy Friday the 13th. Hopefully, it was a good Friday the 13th for everybody. Hi, Rosellen. Hope everything is okay in New York tonight. Thank you for sharing, Corinne. Let's see if the Friday the 13th gremlins want to work my technology or not. Hi, Mom. Happy Friday. Okay, let's see. There we go. I think we might have it. Thank you for sharing, Bernice. All right, and hopefully things look clear on your end and not fuzzy. Sometimes I think it's just my laptop. We'll see. Well, hello and happy Friday the 13th. It is Friday, November 13th, 2020. And tonight we are going to make a center step card. My friend Dory Schneider taught me this technique. Hi, Thelma. Happy Friday. And I decided to give it a try. I've not been too brave with my fun folds, but I decided to experiment a little and came up with this card. I thought this design just begged for this well done suite. So we will get started on this in just a minute. But as always, I appreciate likes, comments, and shares. I do a contest each week where someone who comments and someone who shares wins one of the cards that we make online. And so for commenting on the video last week, Lisa is going to get this card sent to her. And then for sharing the video, Miss Bernice, this one's coming your way. So thank you ladies so much for commenting and sharing. I appreciate it very much. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So here again is the center step card. This is a card that will fit in your standard envelope. Here's my envelope and I stamped it with my little whale here. And you can see it does fit in the envelope perfectly. And this will be a little hard to see, but the card does more or less stand up. So it's a sweet little fun fold. Here's another angle to see if you can see how it kind of works. And then you have two options when you put it together. I chose to put my sentiment piece on the back of the card. So that's what I'm going to show you this evening, but I suppose if you wanted to, you could also put it on the inside as well. So it's up to you. So we will go ahead and get started. Cutting the paper for this and scoring the paper is the trickiest thing you will do, and it's not that bad. So let me pull my supplies over and we will go ahead and get started. So the first thing you're going to need is your piece of cardstock that is 5.5 by 8.5. So it's half a sheet of 8.5 by 11 cardstock. And I'm trying to get all my bits and pieces together here. Now, if you have the Stampin' Up! Paper trimmer and scorer, you will be sitting pretty for this. Or any kind of trimmer that has a sliding cutting blade you can work with. The guillotine style cutter really won't work for this style card just because of the cuts you need to make with it, but you could easily use a craft knife such as an X-Acto knife on something heavy that you won't cut your table with. You'll see what I mean when we get started here. So let me get my directions out so I do this properly. So you've got your 5.5 by 8.5 sheet of cardstock. And you're going to start with your 5.5 inch side on the top. I love our trimmer and the fact that it has the cut marks on the left side that run up to 6, but that it also goes out to about 1.5 inches on the right side of the blade, because it's really handy for certain measurements, and this is one of them. So I've got my 5.5 inch side to the top, and I'm going to line it up on the right hand side marks at 1.25 inches. And close my little arm here. But before I do, I'm going to slide my cutting blade up to the 1 inch mark. And the arm here, I never know if that's the official term for it, but the arm of this trimmer, as you can see, has numbers here as well. So you want to line your blade up at 1 inch. And so paper in at 1.25 on that right side. And I'm lined up at 1 inch, and I'm going to cut from 1 inch down to 5.25. So not all the way. And like I said, this will be the trickiest thing you do. And here's a pro tip for you, what I like to do. So I've made my cut from 1 inch to 5.25. I'm not going to move my score blade, or my cutting blade. I'm just going to pick up the arm so that blade stays where it is. Then I'm going to slide my paper over so that the left side is on that left hand cutting ruler at 1.25. And I'm going to close it again. And so it's still at 5.25 where I had it. And I'm going to slide back on up to that 1 inch mark. And then just lift off. And so I have 2 slits in my cardstock. That's all the cutting I need to do. Now, rotate your paper counterclockwise, so to the left, and you have some scoring to do. So you've got your 8.5 inch side to the top with your score or your cut marks on your left hand side here. At 5.25, you're going to take your scoring blade and score all the way across. Now, hi Julie, happy Friday, thanks for joining me. Slide over to 4.25, and now you're going to score in between your cutting lines. So you don't want to go all the way across, just score in between. And because you've got your cut lines here, you can do the same technique with the scoring blade that you did with the cutting blade, and you can see where you need to line up, push down, and just run it down, and I can see where I need to stop. Now I'm going to shift down to 2 inches, and I'm only going to score on the outside of the cutting lines. So I'm going to line up my score line on the bottom with the tick mark on the side of the score blade and score down. And then I'm going to put it up and press down to score there on the outside. Hopefully you can see that. And then one more on the 1 inch mark. So once you get your head wrapped around, and again, this is on the outside of your cut marks. Once you get your head wrapped around the ins and the outs, it's really not hard. I will admit to screwing up 2 pieces of paper, but I think there were gremlins in here because somehow I was getting my measurements off. So that's all you need to do. So you've got your score line at 5.5, that's where you're going to fold, or 5.25, I'm sorry, that's where you're going to fold your card. Your 4.25 in between, and then 2 inch and 1 inches on the outside. And so now what you're going to do is fold that bottom score line down towards you, pinch it a little bit, pinch up, fold on that 4.25, and fold back. And if you press it flat, there you go. You've built your card. So that wasn't really complicated, was it? Hi Michelle, thanks for joining me. And ladies, I will be posting a picture on my Facebook page when I am done this video that has those cutting directions for you, because I know you might have been trying to craft along with me, or you might have missed it if I was going too fast. So I will post a picture so you don't have to worry about that. Thank you, Bernice. As I said, I did mess this up twice because somehow I ended up with a 1 1/4 inch score mark down here, and I'll tell you, if you do that, it won't work. But if you do the 1 inch, 2 inch, like I showed you, you'll be gold. But I really think there were gremlins running around here. So now all we have to do is decorate the card. And if you want, you can fold it back flat. Now that you've got your score mark, you can kind of see where your panels are once you've got it folded back together. So now's the fun part, just assembling. So you should have 2 pieces of cardstock in a coordinating color. My base here is Pacific Point, and I used Balmy Blue for my accent color. And I have too many pieces of paper floating around here, so let's see. These 2 pieces of cardstock are 1 by 3. And to coordinate on top of it, I use Designer Series paper that is 3/4 of an inch by 2 3/4 inches. And you can experiment. If you just want to do 1 layer of cardstock, you can do that. Or just 1 layer of Designer Series paper. I did that on another card. So you have options. I like to give you options when you assemble things. I forgot to get my adhesive out tonight. Let's see. So, a little bit of Stampin' Seal Plus. Just lining up my cardstock and my Designer Series paper. And so these 2 pieces are going to be placed on the outside, these little wings. And as I said, you can use cardstock or Designer Series paper. And then in the center, you need a piece of cardstock that is 2 3/4 by 3 inches. And what I recommend is when you cut this, lay it on your card front before you glue it on, because it's not quite square. And the first time I made a card with this, I stamped it the wrong way because I wasn't thinking. So now I know to always double check which way the cardstock should go. So it's a little bit taller this way. And then you can either take another layer of cardstock. If you want to stamp your sentiment here, it depends on what stamp set you're using to build your card. You could stamp on Whisper White. Or what I chose to do was, this Designer Series paper is so cute, I needed to use these sea turtles. This is a piece of paper that is 2.5 by 2 3/4. So again, before I cut my paper, I made sure I knew which direction was which. So I'm just going to assemble this with a little bit more Stampin' Seal Plus. And then for this bottom strip, you can use either a piece of cardstock or a piece of Designer Series paper. If you want 1 layer, it will be 3/4 of an inch by 5 1/4 inches long. I decided to use a piece of Designer Series paper. I actually cut one in the Balmy Blue, and then when I was putting the card together, I thought, you know what, I like something different. So I used Designer Series paper there. And if you want to double layer it, your other piece will be 1/2 inch by 5 1/4. So I did these rather than inset them like on all the other ones. These 2 pieces are the same length. So if you want them to be offset, just cut 1/4 inch off. But I'm going to have it so they match up. And I just really liked how the darker blue and the Designer Series paper made the Designer Series paper with the fishies pop. Corinne, I love this paper. I think I'm going to need to get another pack of it, because it is just so cute. And I want to play more. So I just need to lay this strip of Designer Series paper here. And you'll see with my other samples how I experimented a little bit. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is put on my outside pieces. You can tell this is good adhesive because it always sticks to my fingers. So now this one, just a little tip for you. I find that the top score line here wants to get swallowed up. I know, Thelma. I bought lots of other designer series paper when it was on sale. So I like to look at the score line here at the 2-inch mark because it stands out to me a lot, and that way it just doesn't, I don't lose it like I lose this top score line, if that makes sense. You'll probably see if you're putting yours together. So the second strip on the right side. So there's that. Now I'm going to put my little turtles one. And you could obviously pop some of these sections with dimensionals if you wanted to. Totally up to you. And this goes in the center on that larger panel. And then the last thing I have to do is put on the strip across the bottom. And there we go. So now the card is mostly built, and I'm just going to accentuate it a little bit. So one of the pieces in our lovely designer series paper in this Whale Done suite is this cute little page, and you can see I've been using it to cut out the whales. And so I'm going to punch one of these out to put on the front of the card. And I cut a piece out, and I wanted to give you a little tip. There's a couple different ways you can do this. Obviously, since I have such a small piece of the designer series paper, as I bring over my whale punch, it's going to be hard for me to get it in here and hold it where I want it to be because my fat little fingers are in the way. So, and I had to cut it apart from the one I cut last night because otherwise I would have punched out part of this sweet little whale, and I don't want to waste any paper. So if you have a take your pick tool, you can use it and put your paper in and then use the putty end and stick it here and then move the paper. But what I like to do, I like to take a Post-it note and turn it over so the sticky side is up, and I stick my paper to it. And now I have a whole lot more surface to work with when I'm trying to line up my punch. So now I can maneuver all I want to get this sweet little whale lined up and punched out. And if you do use the Post-it note technique, depending on the size of your Post-it and paper, you might actually be able to use it more than once. Just peel off your paper, and I've still got a little sticky there to work with. But the key to remember is to take your punch, turn it over, and take any Post-it off the back. I almost forgot to do that last night, so that's why I tell you, so you don't make my mistakes. So, we've got the cute little whale. I should probably come up with a name for him. He's so sweet. Let me move my punch out of the way. And I decided I wanted a little something. Now I've got Post-it notes stuck to me. When I was experimenting with where to put the whale. Hi Melody, happy Friday. So I thought about over here, but I didn't like how that looked, so I decided to favor the right side of the card for the whale. But I wanted a little something to go here, and I couldn't make up my mind what I wanted. I thought a circle wouldn't quite work. I didn't want a square. So I ended up going with a banner. This is one of the lovely dies from our Tasteful Labels set. Yes, Tasteful Labels dies. And so I didn't quite stamp in the middle, but I did that on purpose when I pre-cut this, because part of it's going to be hidden behind the whale. So I really did that on purpose. But I wanted to make sure you could see enough of the banner. And now I can position this where I want. Now if you're using dimensionals or glue, just remember, don't go crazy on the edges here, because if you go crazy with your dimensionals, you're gonna glue your card shut. Melody, it's okay, go back and catch the replay after, and I'm also going to post this to my YouTube channel, Faithfully Stampin' with Jennifer Helm. So I'm going to watch my dimensional placement when I put this cute little guy on the front of the card because I don't want to stick him and have the card not open. And so I'm going to cover up a little bit of that banner, as I said, but now my card's still open. So if you want to put your sentiment on the inside, you can. I'm going to put it on the back. So this piece of cardstock is 5 1/4 inches wide by 3 inches tall. So it's not quite your standard insert size, but this card isn't as tall as your standard card. So I'm going to bring over my Stampin' Pierce mat because I have a photopolymer stamp set. The Whale Done stamp set is photopolymer, so it's clear, so you just need a little cushion underneath. And so I am using Pacific Point Balmy Blue and Granny Apple Green to pull out the colors in my Designer Series paper. So I'm going to start with the Granny Apple Green and the little fishy stamp. And remember, don't smush your stamps into the ink pad. Tap, tap, tap. So I'm going to put a little school of fish all the way across the top of the card. And that Granny Apple Green shows up nicely on the Balmy Blue. And then I'm going to bring over my Pacific Point and put my sentiment on, which is hoping all your birthday fishes come true. I love the little punny greetings. And so that I'm going to stamp, make sure I have enough ink on that. Right in the middle, 1, 2, 3. And then I wanted to stamp the whale on the back of the card, but I really didn't want it to be too dark. So rather than stamp it in the Pacific Point to match the cardstock, I stamped it in Balmy Blue. And that way he shows up, but he's not as dark. And I give him a little extra press, not too hard, but I like to make sure I get a good impression with him. And if you're thinking, oh man, he didn't quite come clear, that's actually how the stamp is designed. So it's not you. Here's my envelope. You'll be able to see it a little bit better on my envelope. Oop, just stuck my finger in the ink. But this little guy looks textured. It's to give the appearance of his whale skin. There we go. So you can see the coloration differences. And that was done on purpose. So there we go. There's my envelope while I had that stamp out. And now all I need to do is take my greeting panel, flip it over. A little more Stampin' Steel Plus. And as I said, you could put this on the inside or on the back. Oop, that's a card I already glued it on. Here we go. And I opted for the back, but you do whatever your heart tells you to do. Little press, and there we go. And how sweet is that? Somebody would be delighted to get that sweet little card in the mail, and then they could prop it up and sit it up and look at it all the time. So I hope you enjoyed that center step technique and didn't find it too difficult. And I didn't go crazy with samples, but I did make a few. So let me pull them out here for you. This card I copied almost exactly from my friend Dory, where I learned the technique. Sometimes I do that to get started, and then I kind of design my own. This is using the Pampered Pets suite. And here is what I was talking about earlier. You can use cardstock instead of Designer Series paper there and stamp your sentiment directly on there. And I'm thinking I might go back and put either some bling or a little heart stamp or something here at the top. And these I just cut out of the Designer Series paper. And then I stamped on the back. So, all Thelma, thank you. And so one lucky winner next week for commenting or sharing is going to get one of these whale cards. And And then the other lucky winner is going to get one of the Christmas cards. And this features the poinsettia paper. I do not actually have the stamp set for this yet, but I think it's going to be on my next order because it is just so pretty. This designer series paper is actually beautiful. And so I just kept this one very simple. I let the paper do talking. I did cut out, I fussy cut one of the poinsettias. I thought about fussy cutting a little bit more of the smaller insert and popping that, but I decided against it. And then I kept the back very simple. So sweet, very pretty Christmas card in non-traditional colors. So then I made one more. This one, I will admit, I fussed with it a little bit more than the others, but I got an idea. I decided to ink up a stamp set that I have not used before. I fell in love with this as soon as it came out in the catalog, the Fireside Trimming Set, and as of yet, until this morning, I had not put any ink on this. But I thought that this kind of card cried out to try it with a fireplace. So are you ready? I was rather tickled with how this came out, and I'm not sure I'm going to give it away because I like it so much. It might just be a decoration in my house. And I actually haven't even designed a sentiment panel for it yet. I haven't decided what to do. But I used designer series paper from our Tasteful Textures suite that looks like stonework. And then have the fireplace, the little garland, the lanterns, the wreath, and the deer. So I just thought this was perfectly sweet. And you can see here, instead of using designer series paper, I layered different colors of cardstock. So you have options. Lots and lots of options for this type of card. So, there we go, ladies. Thank you, ladies. I'm glad you like those cards. Oh, I've got to get used to this new camera setup. Bernice, you're right. The flower one would make a beautiful sympathy card as well. So here are our center step cards. For you ladies that are joining me tomorrow night for the Christmas card Stamp-A-Stack, I hope to be on at 8:15. If I get to run in late, if my boys don't want to go to bed, I will put up a message so you know, but hopefully that won't be the case. So we will stamp together tomorrow night for the Christmas Stamp-A-Stack. And if you are not participating, you are more than welcome to watch along. You just won't have the kit to work with. And then I have decided that I'm going to take a mental health day on Monday. So we will not have Mystery Monday this week. I've decided I just need to catch up a little bit on things and relax a little bit. My brain's kind of on overload. And Monday and Tuesday might be the last couple of days next week that my kids are actually going to school. So I'm going to just enjoy a little bit of peace and quiet. So what I am going to do, you might see me pop on Monday to issue a challenge. And that will involve a prize. So stay tuned for details on that. Even though we're not doing Mystery Monday, I want to make it fun. And then I will be back next Friday evening with another Facebook Friday Live technique for you. So, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for commenting. I love chatting with you ladies, even though we can't chat in person just yet. But I'm so appreciative that you all spend a little bit of your time with me on Mondays and Fridays. I really, really appreciate it. I look forward to stamping tomorrow night with those of you doing the Christmas card Stamp-A-Stack. And then I will see you next week. So take care, have a great weekend, and happy crafting.